The day the stars went dark was the day humanity's innocence died. On a crisp autumn morning, as children across Earth's colonies prepared for school, the Galactic Council made a decision that would forever change the course of human history. In their infinite wisdom, or perhaps their infinite cruelty, they declared that humanity was a threat to the cosmic order. Their solution was as simple as it was horrifying: eliminate the next generation. Sarah Johnson, a teacher on New Eden, Earth's most populous colony, noticed something strange that morning. The sky, usually a calming shade of lavender, seemed to ripple and twist. She squinted, thinking it must be a trick of the light. But then she saw them. Thousands of sleek, silver ships descending from the heavens like a swarm of angry hornets. "Children, get inside now," she shouted, her heart racing as she ushered her young students into the school building. But it was too late. The ships opened fire, not with explosives or lasers, but with a silent, invisible wave that swept across the planet. Sarah watched in horror as her students, ranging from 5 to 12 years old, collapsed one by one. Their small bodies hit the ground with soft thuds, eyes staring blankly at the alien sky. Across New Eden, the scene repeated itself. Parents watched helplessly as their children fell in parks, in homes, in the streets. The wave was merciless, targeting only those under the age of 18. In a matter of minutes, an entire generation was wiped out. Back on Earth, David Chen, head of the United Earth Defense Force, received the distress call from New Eden. His face paled as he listened to the frantic reports. "Sir," his assistant said, her voice shaking, "it's not just New Eden. It's everywhere. Mars, Europa, Titan. All our colonies." David's mind raced. How could this be happening? The Galactic Council had always been distant, aloof, but never hostile. He slammed his fist on the desk, sending papers flying. "Get me the Council. Now," he roared. But the Council remained silent. Their ships hung in the skies of human worlds, silent sentinels ensuring their grim work was complete. As the hours passed, the true scale of the tragedy became clear. Millions of children, from infants to teenagers, had been killed in an instant. The human race, once spread across dozens of worlds, now faced an unimaginable loss. In the hospitals of New Earth, Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked tirelessly, examining the young victims. "There's no physical trauma," she muttered, running a scanner over a small body. "It's as if their minds were just switched off." She fought back tears, thinking of her own daughter, safe only because she had turned 18 last week. As night fell on that terrible day, a stunned silence settled over human settlements across the galaxy. Parents cradled the bodies of their children, unable to comprehend the cruelty that had befallen them. In homes, in schools, in playgrounds, the laughter of the young was replaced by an oppressive, suffocating quiet. But in that silence, something else was brewing. In the hearts of the survivors, grief began to curdle into rage. On the streets of Earth's cities, crowds began to gather. What started as vigils for the lost children soon turned into something more. "They murdered our future," a man shouted in Times Square, his voice hoarse with emotion. "The Council must pay." The crowd roared in agreement, their anger palpable. In the corridors of power, leaders struggled to respond. How does one react to such an act of cosmic brutality? Military commanders called for immediate retaliation, while diplomats urged caution, fearing further reprisals from the technologically superior council. As dawn broke on a changed universe, humanity stood at a crossroads. The pain of loss warred with the thirst for vengeance. The innocence of a species had been shattered, replaced by a burning desire for justice. Or was it retribution? In his office, David Chen looked out at the rising sun. His eyes were red from a sleepless night, his uniform rumpled. On his desk lay reports from across human space, each detailing the same horrific story. He picked up a photo of his granddaughter, her young face forever frozen in a carefree smile. She had been on Mars when the attack came. David's hand tightened on the frame, his knuckles turning white. In that moment, he made a decision that would set humanity on a course that could not be undone. "Prepare our fleets," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "The Galactic Council has made their move. Now it's our turn." The stars may have gone dark for humanity, but a new fire was being lit, one that threatened to burn the galaxy to ashes. The sun rose on a changed universe, but for humanity, it might as well have stayed dark. In the days following the Galactic Council's attack, a heavy silence fell over human colonies. Streets once filled with the laughter of children now echoed with the sound of grieving parents. Parks and playgrounds stood empty, swings creaking in the wind like ghosts of happier times. On Earth, Sarah Chen, wife of Defense Force head David Chen, walked through the silent halls of what was once an elementary school in Beijing. Colorful drawings still hung on the walls, stick figure families smiling under crayon suns. Sarah's hand trembled as she touched a small desk, imagining the child who once sat there. "Ma'am," a young soldier said, approaching hesitantly. "We've finished the count." Sarah nodded, unable to speak. The count, such a clinical term for such a heartbreaking task. Tallying the dead, the lost generation. Across the solar system, similar scenes played out. On Mars, colony governor Aisha Patel stood before a crowd of thousands. Their faces were etched with grief and anger. "We have lost more than just our children," Aisha said, her voice carrying across the Martian plaza. "We have lost our future, our hope." She paused, fighting back tears. "But we will not let this break us. We are humanity. We endure." The crowd's response was muted. Endure? How could they endure this? Back on Earth, the political landscape was shifting like sand in a storm. Governments toppled as grieving citizens demanded action, retribution, anything to fill the void left by their lost children. In Geneva, the United Earth Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from every nation and colony gathered, their faces haggard with sleepless nights and unending sorrow. "We must strike back," thundered the representative from New Eden, his fist slamming on the table. "The council must pay for what they've done." "With what?" asked the Chinese delegate, her voice tired. "Our fleets are no match for their technology. We'd be sending more of our people to die." The debate raged on, a reflection of the turmoil in every human heart. Vengeance or survival? Fight or hide? Meanwhile, in laboratories across human space, scientists worked tirelessly to understand the weapon used against them. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, leading a team on Luna, pored over data from the attack. "It's like nothing we've ever seen," she muttered, rubbing her tired eyes. "It targeted specific neural pathways, but only in developing brains. It's horrifyingly precise." Her colleague, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, looked up from his own screens. "Elena," he said softly, "do you think, could we reverse it? Bring them back?" Elena's heart clenched. How many parents had asked her that same question, hope shining in their tear-filled eyes? "I don't know, Yuki," she said, "but we have to try." As scientists sought answers, others sought solace. Religious leaders of all faiths struggled to provide comfort in the face of such overwhelming loss. Churches, mosques, temples, and synagogues were filled day and night with those seeking meaning in the madness. In a small chapel in London, Father Michael O'Brien faced his congregation. "In our darkest hour, we must hold on to our faith," he said, his voice wavering. "Not just in God, but in each other, in humanity's strength to overcome." But for many, faith was not enough. A wave of suicides swept through the colonies. Parents, unable to bear the loss of their children, sought to join them in death. Mental health services were overwhelmed, struggling to cope with the tidal wave of grief and trauma. In military bases across human space, a different response was brewing. Soldiers, many of whom had lost their own children, trained with a new intensity. Their grief hardened into determination, their sorrow into a burning desire for payback. On the moon, General Laura Santos watched her troops run drills. "We're not ready," she said to her aide, "but we'll have to be. The next time the council comes, we'll be waiting." As the first month after the attack drew to a close, humanity stood at a crossroads. The initial shock was wearing off, replaced by a grim determination. In labs, in government chambers, in military bases, plans were being made. David Chen, standing in his office overlooking a changed Washington, D.C., made a decision. He picked up his secure comm unit and sent out a message to key individuals across human space: scientists, military leaders, political figures. The message was simple: it's time. We strike back. In the depths of space, unnoticed by grieving humanity, something stirred. The Galactic Council's ships, silent sentinels since the attack, began to move. Whether coming to finish the job or facing the consequences of their actions, only time would tell. The stage was set. Humanity, wounded but unbroken, was about to take its first steps into a larger, more dangerous universe. The time for mourning was over. The time for action had come. In the shadows of a broken world, hope began to stir. 3 months after the Galactic Council's devastating attack, a secret meeting took place in the abandoned mines of Mars. David Chen, his face gaunt from sleepless nights, looked around the dimly lit cavern at the faces of those he had summoned. "We're here because humanity needs us," he began, his voice echoing in the underground chamber. "The governments are paralyzed. The military is outmatched. If we're going to survive, we need to take matters into our own hands." Among those gathered were familiar faces. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, her eyes burning with determination. General Laura Santos, her uniform crisp despite the dusty surroundings. And Governor Aisha Patel, who had risked everything to be here. "What you're proposing is treason," Aisha said, her voice low. "If we're caught, if we do nothing, we're already dead," Laura cut in. "I'd rather die fighting than waiting for the council to finish what they started." Elena stepped forward, a holographic projector in her hand. "I've been studying the weapon they used," she said, activating the device. A complex molecular structure appeared in the air. "It's beyond anything we've seen, but not beyond our understanding. Given time and resources, we might be able to develop a defense." David nodded. "That's where we start. Elena, you'll lead our research division. Laura, you'll handle military strategy. Aisha, we need your political connections to gather resources without raising suspicions." As the meeting continued, plans were made, roles assigned. This was the birth of the resistance, humanity's last desperate hope. Across the solar system, similar cells began to form. On the moons of Jupiter, in the mines of the asteroid belt, in underground bunkers on Earth, people came together. Scientists, soldiers, teachers, farmers, all united by grief and a burning desire for justice. In a secret lab on Titan, Dr. Yuki Tanaka worked tirelessly. His team had made a breakthrough in understanding the Council's weapon. "If we can reverse engineer this," he muttered, his eyes red from lack of sleep, "we might have a chance." Meanwhile, on Earth, Sarah Chen took on a different kind of battle. In public, she played the role of the grieving grandmother, attending memorials and giving speeches about healing. In private, she was the resistance's key to public support. "We can't let them forget," she told a group of journalists, tears in her eyes. "But we also can't let our grief destroy us. We need to channel it, use it to build a better future." Her words struck a chord. Slowly, the mood on Earth began to shift. The paralyzing grief gave way to a grim determination. Recruitment for the military soared, and scientific research saw an unprecedented boom. In the asteroid belt, Laura Santos oversaw the conversion of mining ships into makeshift warships. "They're not pretty," she told her engineers, "but they'll pack a punch, and the council won't see them coming." But the path of the resistance was not smooth. On Mars, a raid on a suspected resistance base led to a firefight with colonial authorities. The news spread quickly, threatening to expose the entire operation. David Chen paced in his underground command center, watching reports flood in. "We need to move faster," he told his lieutenants. "The Council could return any day. We need to be ready." As if in answer to his fears, alarms blared across the system. The long-range scanners had picked up something, a massive fleet, approaching from the edges of the solar system. In the chaos that followed, a strange message was intercepted. It wasn't from the approaching fleet, but from somewhere much closer. The language was alien, but the intent was clear. Help was being offered. Elena burst into David's command center, her face flushed with excitement. "You need to see this," she said, handing him a datapad. I think we're not alone in opposing the Council." David's eyes widened as he read the translated message. For the first time in months, a small smile crossed his face. "Get me a secure line to all resistance cells," he ordered. Things just got interesting. As the unknown fleet drew closer and the mysterious message was deciphered, the resistance stood on the brink of a new chapter. The coming days would determine not just the fate of humanity, but perhaps the entire galaxy. In hidden bases across the solar system, humans prepared for war. But this time, they had something they'd lacked before: hope. And sometimes, hope is the most powerful weapon of all. The mysterious message that had given the resistance hope now became the focus of their efforts. In a hidden base beneath the Martian surface, Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her team worked tirelessly to decipher its full meaning. "It's not just a message," Elena muttered, her eyes fixed on holographic displays floating before her. "It's a key." As she spoke, the alien symbols began to shift and transform. Suddenly, a flood of information poured forth: star charts, technical specifications, and most importantly, the true history of humanity's place in the galaxy. David Chen, who had been watching silently, stepped forward. "What are we looking at, Doctor?" Elena's voice trembled with excitement and fear. "The truth, David. We're looking at the truth." The data revealed a shocking reality. Humanity was not a young species stumbling into a larger galactic community. They were the descendants of an ancient and powerful civilization that had once ruled the stars. Thousands of years ago, this civilization had posed a threat to the Galactic Council's power. Unable to defeat them in open war, the Council had resorted to treachery. They had used a weapon to wipe the memories of the entire human race, reducing them to primitive beings and confining them to Earth. The recent attack on human children wasn't just an act of cruelty. It was an attempt to prevent the reawakening of humanity's dormant potential. As this information spread through the resistance, reactions varied wildly. Some felt a surge of pride and determination. Others were overwhelmed by the weight of this newfound legacy. In her quarters on the lunar base, General Laura Santos pored over the ancient battle strategies now at her disposal. With this knowledge, she said to her aides, "We might stand a chance against the Council's fleets." But not everyone was convinced. Governor Aisha Patel, in a secure video call with David, voiced her concerns. "How can we trust this information? What if it's a trap?" David's face was grim. "We can't be certain, Aisha. But right now, it's the only advantage we have." As the resistance grappled with these revelations, the approaching fleet drew ever closer. Tensions ran high as humanity prepared for a possible invasion. Then, just as the fleet entered the outer reaches of the solar system, something unexpected happened. The ships began to change course, moving into a holding pattern around Pluto. In the command center, David and his team watched in confusion. "What are they waiting for?" Laura asked, her hand hovering over the command to launch their makeshift defense fleet. Before anyone could answer, a new transmission came through. It was from the fleet, and this time, the message was in perfect English. "People of Earth, we come as allies. We are the Guardians, sworn enemies of the Galactic Council. We have watched and waited, hoping for your awakening. Now we offer our help in reclaiming your destiny." A stunned silence fell over the command center. David was the first to recover. "Open a channel," he ordered. "It's time we had a talk with these Guardians." As preparations were made for this historic communication, Alina made another breakthrough. Hidden in the original message was a set of coordinates, the location of an ancient human outpost, untouched for millennia. "We need to send a team," Alina insisted. "Who knows what technologies, what knowledge we might recover?" David nodded, his mind racing with the possibilities. "Assemble a team, Doctor. You'll lead the expedition yourself." As Alina rushed off to prepare, David turned to Laura. "General, I need you to prepare our forces, not for war, but for a possible alliance. If these Guardians are telling the truth, we're about to enter a much larger playing field." Across the solar system, word of these developments spread like wildfire. Hope, fear, excitement, and uncertainty battled in the hearts of every human. In orbit around Earth, Sarah Chen looked down at the blue planet, tears in her eyes. "We lost so much," she whispered. "But perhaps, just perhaps, we've gained a future." As humanity stood on the brink of a new era, questions still remained. Could they trust the Guardians? Would they be able to reclaim their lost legacy? And what would happen when they inevitably confronted the Galactic Council? The next few days would determine the course of human history. The truth had been unveiled, but the real challenge was just beginning. The ancient human outpost, hidden in the depths of an asteroid in the Kuiper Belt, hummed to life for the first time in millennia. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in awe as holographic displays flickered around her, filling the chamber with a soft blue glow. "It's incredible," she whispered, her fingers tracing lines of alien text that somehow felt familiar. "Our entire history, our technology, it's all here." Back on Earth, David Chen and the Resistance leadership met with the Guardians. The alien beings, tall and ethereal with shimmering, translucent skin, exuded an aura of ancient wisdom. "We have waited long for this day," the Guardian leader, who called himself Zen, said. His voice seemed to echo in their minds rather than their ears. "The time has come for humanity to reclaim its place among the stars." General Laura Santos, ever cautious, stepped forward. "And what exactly is our place? Why should we trust you?" Zen's eyes, swirling pools of silver, met Laura's gaze. "Because, General, we were created by your ancestors to be the guardians of your legacy. We have watched over you for thousands of years, waiting for the day you would awaken." As this meeting unfolded, Alina made a startling discovery in the outpost. "David," she called over the secure channel, her voice trembling with excitement, "I found something. It's a weapon. Something our ancestors were working on before they fell. Something that could change everything." David's eyes widened. "What kind of weapon?" "A way to reverse what the Council did to us," Alina explained. "Not just to defend against their memory-wiping technology, but to undo its effects. We could restore our lost knowledge, our lost powers." The implications were staggering. With this weapon, they could not only protect themselves, but potentially awaken the dormant potential in every human being. However, as hope surged through the Resistance, the Galactic Council made its move. A massive fleet, dwarfing even that of the Guardians, appeared at the edge of the solar system. "They know," Zen said, his usual calm demeanor shaken. "They've discovered your awakening. We must act now, or all will be lost." David nodded, his face set with determination. "It's time for our first strike. Alina, how soon can that weapon be ready?" "Hours," she replied. "But David, we haven't tested it. We don't know what it will do." "We're out of options," David said grimly. "Prepare the weapon. Laura, get our fleet ready. We're taking the fight to them." As the human and Guardian fleets prepared for battle, Sarah Chen addressed the people of Earth and its colonies. Her voice, broadcast across every channel, was strong and resolute. "For too long, we have been victims," she said. "We have suffered loss beyond imagination. But today, we fight back. Not just for vengeance, but for our future, for our very identity as a species." Her words ignited a fire in the hearts of humanity. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers. Every ship, Every weapon was made ready. In orbit around Neptune, the battle began. Human ships, enhanced with Guardian technology, clashed with the Council's sleek vessels. Energy beams lit up the darkness of space, and explosions bloomed like deadly flowers among the stars. At the heart of the human fleet, Alina's team prepared to activate the ancient weapon. "All systems are go," she reported, her hand hovering over the activation switch. "David, whatever happens, it's been an honor." David's voice crackled over the comm. "The honor has been mine, Doctor. Activate the weapon." With a deep breath, Alina flipped the switch. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, a wave of energy, invisible but felt by every human in the system, pulsed outward. Council ships began to falter, their systems disrupted by the unfamiliar energy. But the real change was happening within the humans themselves. Across the fleet, across the solar system, people gasped as memories and knowledge long buried began to surface. In the midst of the chaos, a council ship much larger than the others appeared. From it came a transmission, filled with rage and disbelief. "What have you done? Do you realize what you've unleashed?" As the battle raged on, with humanity now fighting with the strength and knowledge of their ancestors, the true war was only beginning. The Galactic Council's worst fear had come to pass. Humanity had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. The aftermath of humanity's first strike against the Galactic Council was chaos incarnate. As the ancient weapon's energy dissipated, humans across the solar system found themselves grappling with newfound abilities and long-forgotten memories. On the bridge of the flagship Prometheus, David Chen watched in awe as his crew operated with an efficiency that bordered on the superhuman. Lieutenant Maria Kovacs, previously a skilled but unremarkable navigator, now piloted the massive ship through the debris field of destroyed council vessels with impossible precision. "It's like, I can see the patterns of gravity," Maria said, her eyes wide with wonder. "I know exactly where everything is and where it's going to be." Similar reports flooded in from across human space. Scientists made breakthrough discoveries in minutes. Engineers retrofitted ships with advanced technology they suddenly understood. It was as if the collective knowledge of their ancient civilization had been unlocked all at once. But with this awakening came challenges. Not everyone could handle the sudden influx of memories and abilities. Hospitals were overwhelmed with people suffering from severe migraines and psychological trauma. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, still at the Kuiper Belt outpost, worked tirelessly to understand and mitigate these effects. "We've unleashed something incredible," she told David over a secure channel. "But if we can't control it, it might destroy us before the Council does." Meanwhile, the Galactic Council's response to humanity's resurgence was swift and brutal. Fleets converged on human colonies across the galaxy, those that had been hidden or forgotten in the ages since humanity's fall. The message was clear: submit or be annihilated. On Mars, Governor Aisha Patel coordinated the evacuation of outlying settlements as council bombers darkened the skies. "We need more time," she pleaded with David. "There are still thousands of civilians who haven't awakened their abilities. They're defenseless." The Guardians, led by Zen, proved invaluable in these desperate hours. Their ships formed protective barriers around human worlds, buying precious time for evacuations and for more humans to come into their power. But even the Guardians were not invincible. In a fierce battle over Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, Zen's ship was critically damaged. As his life ebbed away, he transmitted a final message to David. "The key lies in unity. Humanity's greatest strength was always its diversity. Unite, and you cannot be defeated." With Zen's sacrifice, a grim determination settled over the human forces. General Laura Santos, her tactical genius enhanced by awakened memories of countless battles across the stars, devised a daring strategy. "We can't keep playing defense," she argued in a war council. "We need to take the fight to the Council's core worlds. Hit them where they think they're safest." It was a risky plan, one that would leave human worlds vulnerable. But as reports of council atrocities poured in, the need for decisive action became clear. Sarah Chen, now serving as the voice of unity for awakened humanity, addressed the population once more. "We stand at a crossroads," she said, her voice carrying across the stars. "We have remembered who we were, but we must decide who we will be. Will we use our reclaimed power for vengeance, becoming the very monsters we fight against? Or will we forge a new path, one that leads to a galaxy where all beings, human and alien alike, can live in peace?" Her words sparked fierce debate among the awakened humans. Some, driven by rage at what was done to them, called for the complete annihilation of the council. Others, remembering the wisdom of their ancestors, urged caution and diplomacy. As the human fleet prepared for its audacious assault on the council's home systems, a startling discovery was made. Dr. Rodriguez, delving deeper into the ancient outpost's databanks, found evidence that the council's fear of humanity wasn't baseless. "David," she said, her voice shaking, "I think I know why the council tried to wipe us out. Our ancestors, they were on the verge of discovering something that could rewrite the very laws of the universe." Before she could elaborate, alarms blared across the human networks. A massive council armada, larger than any they had faced before, had entered the solar system. At its head was a ship of impossible size, a construct that dwarfed even gas giants. As the human fleet moved to intercept, David Chen realized that the true test of humanity's awakening was about to begin. The next few hours would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of the entire galaxy. The final battle was at hand, and the stakes could not be higher. The massive council armada loomed over Earth, its flagship a colossus that blotted out the sun. On the bridge of the Prometheus, David Chen felt the weight of humanity's fate on his shoulders. "All ships, battle stations," he commanded, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his gut. "Remember who we are, what we've endured. Today, we fight not just for vengeance, but for our right to exist." As the human fleet moved to engage, Dr. Elena Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm from her station in the Kuiper Belt. "David, wait. The discovery I made, it changes everything." "We're out of time, Elena," David replied, watching the council ships advance. "Whatever it is, it'll have to wait." "No, you don't understand," Elena insisted. "Our ancestors found a way to tap into the fundamental forces of the universe. That's why the council feared us. With this knowledge, we could reshape reality itself." David's mind raced. Could this be the key to ending the war? But before he could respond, the space between the fleets lit up with weapons fire. The battle that ensued was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships, piloted by newly awakened minds, danced through the void with impossible grace. Council vessels, despite their advanced technology, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. On Mars, Governor Aisha Patil coordinated a ground defense against council dropships. Awakened humans used their newfound powers to remarkable effect, turning the red sands into a graveyard of alien war machines. Back on the Prometheus, General Laura Santos guided the fleet with the strategic brilliance of 1,000 lifetimes. But even with their reclaimed abilities, the humans were vastly outnumbered. As the battle raged, Sarah Chen broadcast a message to both fleets. "This cycle of violence must end," she pleaded. "We've all lost too much. There must be another way." Her words seemed to fall on deaf ears as the carnage continued. But deep within the council flagship, they stirred something unexpected. Suddenly, a new voice boomed across all channels. "Enough," it thundered. The voice belonged to the Supreme Counselor, the enigmatic leader of the Galactic Council. "Humans," the Supreme Counselor said, "you have proven yourselves worthy adversaries. But do you not see? This conflict will end in mutual destruction." David, seizing the moment, responded, "Then let's end it now. We've unlocked the knowledge you feared, but we don't seek to dominate. We want to understand." There was a long pause. Then, to everyone's shock, The Council flagship opened its docking bay. "Come aboard, human leader," the Supreme Counselor said. "Let us talk." Against the protests of his crew, David took a shuttle to the Council ship. As he stepped into the cavernous chamber, he found himself face to face with the Supreme Counselor, a being of pure energy, pulsing with ancient power. "You have no idea what forces you're meddling with," the Counselor said. "The power your ancestors discovered, it could unravel the very fabric of the universe." David stood his ground. "Then help us understand it. Guide us. Isn't that better than trying to wipe us out?" As they talked, Elena's voice came through David's communicator. "David, I've done it. I've decoded the final piece. Our ancestors, they weren't trying to reshape reality. They were trying to connect with it, to become one with the universe itself." The Supreme Counselor's form flickered. Impossible. But David saw the truth. This wasn't about power or dominance. It was about evolution, about taking the next step in cosmic consciousness. "Join us," David said, extending his hand to the being of energy. "Not as rulers or subjects, but as partners. Let's explore this new frontier together." For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Then, slowly, a tendril of energy reached out to touch David's hand. The effect was immediate and awe-inspiring. A wave of energy pulsed out from the flagship, washing over both fleets, over planets and stars. Everywhere it touched, beings felt a connection, a oneness with the cosmos they had never experienced before. The war was over, but something far greater had begun. As the human and council fleets stood down, as cheers erupted across 1,000 worlds, David looked out at the star-studded void. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges and wonders beyond imagination. But for the first time since the tragedy that had started it all, he felt hope. Humanity had not just reclaimed its past, it had opened the door to a future limited only by the bounds of the universe itself. And those bounds, they were now discovering, were far more flexible than anyone had ever dreamed.